Good evening in a dark South Africa. It is Map Show 96. We are nearing that 100 mark very quickly. Before we go further, I would like to introduce the March Master, the legend, Mr. Glen McQuirk himself, who's going to share some wisdom with us tonight regarding leadership. And with that, over to you, Glen.
Well, thank you so much, Henny. This is an exciting time, and I'm looking forward to hearing the panel discussion later on this evening. And of course, we're talking about leadership, and leadership is the theme, not just for tonight's talk, but it's the theme for this year. And so I want to share a few thoughts with you on leadership, and I know that the panel that we have tonight have got some really great insights that they're going to share with us, and I'm looking forward to hearing their insights this evening. So let's go and take a look at some ideas on this question of leadership, something that I think everybody is aspiring to, but very few people feel that they are qualified to lead. And so this evening, I thought I'd just share a couple ideas relating to leadership, because I struggled for many years with this concept of leadership. You know, there are books written on leadership. I think one of the well-known authors who writes on leadership is John Maxwell, and he has many different books talking about various laws that we need to follow. One also gets the impression that you could actually go and get a degree in leadership, and there's all these qualifications, and as a consequence, you and I may feel that we aren't qualified to lead. And so I spent 12 years disqualifying myself from leadership until one day I realized that personal leadership precedes organizational leadership. The key qualification to lead is not a title, it's not a position, but it's the ability to lead yourself. So the first letter of the word leadership talks about lead, or rather the L talks about lead. And you might say, well, of course, that's what leadership's about. Well, I'm talking about leading yourself. And to lead yourself, there's one thing that's really important, and that is you need to, can you believe this, know where you are going. Isn't that amazing? If you want to lead, you've got to know where you're going. Every leader, whether you're on a hiking trail, whether you're on a ship heading off to some harbor, whether you're on an aeroplane going to another port, airport somewhere, it doesn't matter. When you're traveling or moving in a direction, which is what leadership implies, you're going somewhere, you need to know the destination. You need to know what direction you're going in. And so this is a very easy step. It's a very simple qualification that everybody can attain. It's not something that somebody can give you. Sure, in the workspace, somebody can tell you what you should be doing. They can give you direction. But when it comes to your own personal life, nobody, not your mother, your father, your husband, your wife, your children, nobody can tell you where to go. You've got to listen to your heart. So the first thing to lead is to know where you're going. And to know where you're going, you need to listen to your heart. My personal experience is that I heard my destination when I was 12 years of age. And so I've met many people who share the same experience. Before they became a teenager, they already had a vision of a particular destination. And most people talk themselves out of pursuing that destination. They think it is too big, it's too far, it's beyond their ability. Maybe tonight is an opportunity for you to just revisit, to go back to those younger years and ask yourself the question, what was on my heart? What were the things that I really desired to do that maybe weren't on the list of professions that you could choose? Maybe they didn't fit with what your mother and father thought was a good idea. My parents certainly thought that a good idea was to get a good education, have a good secure job, and life would be happy forever after. And I pretty quickly found out, in fact, after the first 2 weeks of working, I don't even think it was, one could say 2 weeks, it was 10 days at my first office job as an engineer. And I realized that this was not going to take me in the direction that my heart was calling. So the first thing, know where you're going. The second thing about a leader is that you need to realize that as you are moving forward, as you are leading towards your destination, you are by default setting an example. You know, when you're in a position of leadership, people are watching you. They're looking at your every move. Some people are actually copying you. They're emulating you. They're wanting to be like you. And so with leadership comes great responsibility. And the responsibility is to set an example that others should emulate. You can't tell people to do one thing and you do something else. I learned after 19 years of parenting, and that's today, my daughter is almost at the age of 30, so I've been parenting for longer than 19 years. But after 19 years, I realized something I wish I knew at the start of my parenting, and that is that my children weren't listening to everything I was telling them. I had so many good things that I had read in books and had listened to on CDs back in those days. You might be watching YouTube or whatever, you get all these great ideas. And I was sharing all these things, thinking that they were learning from what I was telling them. But in actual fact, they were learning by what they were seeing me doing. So my example, my walk spoke more loudly than my talk. And so I want to encourage you to understand that with leadership comes responsibility. Leadership is perceived by many as the freedom to do whatever you want to do. And there is an element of truth in that. In fact, that is true. You can do whatever you want when you're the leader. And we see that playing out in the political environment all over the world. You know, as a leader, you can do whatever you choose. But with leadership comes responsibility to think about the impact that your decisions will have on others. So in actual fact, leadership means responsibility, and that responsibility increases to a higher level the greater the number of people you lead. So example is actually talking about the responsibility to make the right choices. Another thing that I find is a real value in terms of leading others is this word, acceptance. Do you know that I have an inner voice that used to, and I say used to because I've had a fight with this inner voice for the last 20 plus years. This inner voice used to always tell me that I was no good, that I didn't measure up, that I couldn't possibly take any form of leadership. And I had this constant reminder of the faults in my life and the reasons why I couldn't qualify to lead. The last thing I needed was somebody from the outside confirming that and telling me the same thing. And so I was desperately looking for someone who would accept me just as I was, just as I am. And I think one of the things about great leaders are that they accept people where they're at. They understand that they are on this journey of struggle as well. And as a result, they accept them, but at the same time that they accept them, they help share the vision so that that person knows where they're going and they can work on their shortcomings within a safe environment. You know that when you accept people just as they are, you suddenly get a bunch of followers, a bunch of people that are there because they accepted. They want to belong. So I think acceptance is something that we can all work on. We all desire it. Other people desire it. So if you want to lead people, start learning how to accept them instead of pointing out all their faults. I think this is something that anyone, anywhere can begin to work on and develop. And start with your own family members. Begin to practice this because it's a skill that as a leader you're going to need. Because sometimes people are going to disappoint you. Sometimes people are going to make mistakes. Sometimes you might find people are going to jump ship. They're going to leave the environment you're in, and you're going to feel stranded. Or maybe some people are going to make decisions that are going to cost you, that are going to hurt you. And that's going to come if you step into a position of leadership. But despite that, I think it's important to accept people. And you know, the easiest way to do that is to recognize and acknowledge that you also make mistakes, that I make mistakes. And if I make mistakes and yet I still have the title of leader, then who am I to reject other people simply because they made a mistake? Yes, if a person repeatedly makes a mistake, then maybe they need to earn the right to work with you on something. But let's not reject people completely, as the world seems to suggest is a good idea. I think another important aspect of leadership is to be decisive. In South Africa, we have a panel this evening that speak a foreign language. Well, when I say they speak a foreign language, they might speak a foreign language compared to where you are in the world. In South Africa, it's not foreign. And so in this particular language, there's a wonderful statement. And the statement also starts with the letter D, and it says, being a draadsitter. A draadsitter, in my best interpretation, is somebody who sits on the fence. Somebody who is indecisive. Now, I grew up on a farm. One of the first things that I learned from my grandfather was how to install a fence. I mean, to dig the holes, put in the poles, make sure the fence was straight, pull the wires tight. I mean, we did that. And once we had done it, when those wires were tight, there was no way that you could get through that fence. You had to climb over. And what I found was that if I wanted to climb over that fence, I had to do it where there was a pole, because if I did it anywhere else, it will wobble and I would fall off. And to stand on top of the fence, as the saying goes, was almost an impossibility. Yet so many people find themselves in that place where they're on the fence, they're indecisive. A friend of mine said to me many years ago, he said, listen, stop sitting on the fence, make a decision. A bad decision or a wrong decision is better than no decision. Because when you make a wrong decision or bad decision, you instantly recognize that it's a wrong or bad decision, and you can change and you can do the right thing. But sitting on the fence means you procrastinate and life passes by, it runs through your fingers and you never move forward. So I think that to lead others, we need to practice being decisive in our own life. And he just said, Glenn, as long as 51% of your decisions are right, you're moving in the right direction. And I thought, wow, I wanted 100% of my decisions to be right. He said, just get 51% of them. And then he said something else. He said, just decide, is it red or blue? And I said, what do you mean? So he said, just decide, is it red or blue? And decide if you're going to go with the blue decisions, you just take the blue decision and leave the red ones. And, he simplified this whole decision-making process. And so being decisive, even when you're not 100% sure, is better than sitting and waiting. I think too often we spend our life excusing our procrastination as patience. Maybe it's just being yellow, as they would say. There's another letter, E, and I'm just going to talk to the word leader this evening. And that is, as a leader, and this is an area that I can really improve on, is to encourage others. I remember my opinion was that I did not need anybody to encourage me. My message to others was that I was alive from the inside out. There was a fire ignited inside of me. I had knowledge of where I was going. I didn't need anyone on the external to motivate or to inspire me. But there was a day when somebody on a project that I was busy with as an engineer came up to me and thanked me for the work that I'd done. And just the words, "well done," had such an impact on me that day that I realized that even someone like myself, who claimed that I didn't need anyone to encourage me, desperately needed encouragement. I needed that input. And that external input actually made the fire burn stronger within. And perhaps the people around you right now, remember, you are a leader, whether you like it or not. There are people watching you, whether it's your spouse, whether it's your parents, whether it's your children, whether it's the people in your community, in your church, wherever it might be. There are people watching you. There are people looking at you. And without you knowing it, you are leading them in some way, shape, or form. And so let's start practicing this idea of encouraging others. Look for an excuse to give a compliment, to say well done. Even sometimes, like, man, I just love the way you park your car so well when you come to church on a Sunday morning. I wish I could reverse park the way you do. Just small little things. I think there are many opportunities that pass us by where we could have spoken a word of encouragement. So let's be known as encouragers. And then the last point that I want to share with you this evening is this word. When I started out in my working career, I was viewed as a resource. In fact, in the company, there was a human resource department. And so I thought they were on my side. What I found out later was actually they worked for the company. They didn't work for me. So they weren't interested in me as a resource. From day one, they were making sure they had the I's dotted and the T's crossed so that should I mess up at some point, they could get rid of me easily. Anyway, that was my feeling. But clearly, there were other resources in the company. And those resources were things like computers. They were machines, materials, all kinds of stuff. Finances. I was just one of the types of resources in the company. And I think if you're going to lead people effectively, you cannot look at them simply as a resource. In fact, you shouldn't look at them as a resource at all, but rather recognize that every single person is unique in every way. And because they are unique, a one-of-a-kind masterpiece right there with you, they have ideas inside of them. They have seed that they've brought to this world. See them not as a resource, but as a vessel full of resources. And the resources are the ideas, the solutions, the things that they bring. Because when you look at people as resourceful, you value them beyond just the idea of a resource. You see, a resource can be replaced on a whim. But somebody who is jam-packed full of ideas that are unique can never be replaced. And I think if we start just changing our mindset a little bit and seeing every single person as full of resource, that we could practice and prepare ourselves for great personal leadership, and as a consequence, become leaders of organizations, leaders of businesses, leaders of movements, whatever it might be that you are called to lead in. Because I believe every single person is born to lead within their purpose. Born to lead within their purpose. Why? Because when you connect with your purpose, you see the vision of a future that does not yet exist. And because you can see that future, because you've seen the destination, you are the one who has the direction. Therefore, you are the one chosen to lead in that situation. And there's many other people that can complement your lack. So where you are weak, there are others that are strong. But the one thing that nobody can replace is the ability to see the invisible scene that you saw. So just to recap then, the L is about lead, which is know where you're going. Set the example that because others are watching you, your walk is more important than your talk. Learn to accept other people as being equal to you in the sense that they are on a journey through life. And on that journey, they are learning. And every time they learn, it's potentially the result of something they've failed at. So when they fail at something, see it as a lesson that they've learned, which they won't repeat going forward, and they're going to be stronger for it. Be decisive. Don't sit on the wire. Learn to encourage people. Make it a goal that every day you encourage at least one person, and begin to see people as vessels that are jam-packed full of ideas that can literally solve all of the world's problems. And if you do that, then you're going to be the kind of leader that many people would like to follow. I trust that the panel is going to have a great session this evening. I look forward to their input. Thank you so much. If you're watching us online, please share your comments. Henny will be certain to bring you in and to answer any questions that you might have. See you next week, Wednesday, same time, same place.
Looks like I'm muted. Let me try again. As always, Glen has shared with us so many valuable gems, so many valuable things that we can think around and talk around. I think, let me start introducing the panel. And when I talk about the panel, I'm including everybody out there as well. Please start sharing, throw some questions in, tell us what you think, add what you want to add to that. Before I introduce the panel, Quentin, thank you very much. I'll read through what he said just now. And Terence, welcome aboard. All righty, with that, let me start introducing myself first. I'm still Henny, I'm still from Rudderpoort, and I'm still enjoying this journey, getting closer to my purpose. I'd like to introduce the panel, Bucks and Rian. Let's get them on screen quickly. I'm going to ask you, Bucks and Rian, to just take 30 seconds or so to just introduce yourselves, please. Bucks?
I'm Bucks Bartels. I live in Port Elizabeth. Currently, I'm living in Port Elizabeth. Grew up in the Eastern Transvaal, the old Eastern Transvaal. So, yeah, and I'm recently moved to Port Elizabeth, and now I live by the sea.
Thank you. Rian?
Yes, Bucks, where you moved from, I'm still stuck here in old Eastern Transvaal. I'm from Lydenburg in South Africa, in Mpumalanga nowadays. And yes, like Jenny said, we're on a journey to our purpose, and I'm still enjoying the journey. But as Glen has earlier highlighted, it's so important to also encourage each other. This weekend at church, when we were having Easter, I was also thinking about, Jesus had 12 disciples because they needed to encourage each other. It's not a alone journey. We don't have lone rangers. We don't have heroes. We only have people who is going together. We all need our purpose and our role. So it's a very nice journey, but we need each other to encourage each other and to then be effective leaders that we need to be.
Thank you, Rian. So before I throw the question out to the panel, what is that one thing that stood out for them during the talk tonight? I think I want to start throwing that out with by adding what the online people are actually sharing with us. So let me just quickly scroll up there because there's lots of comments, and please keep them coming. Quentin said, "What if is arguably the arch enemy of decisiveness." Terence has stated that I am a masterpiece. I am endowed with every resource I need to fulfill my purpose. And Stan has joined us. Welcome, Stan. Stan said, accept others' opinions. So that is, I think, some valuable input that we got from our online community as well. My question to you two gentlemen is, what is that one thing that Glen mentioned? And there's a lot of things, and I know it's a difficult question. What is the one thing that would stand out for you from the talk tonight? Bucks?
Leadership. What stood out for me, and that's even it started in the beginning of this talk, is I cannot lead if I cannot lead myself. I cannot lead other people if I cannot lead myself. Now, leading myself means that I need to know where I'm going. I need to have the capability. I need to have people that follows me. And people won't follow me if I don't know where I'm going and I'm just floating around. So yeah, and something important that he mentioned is he mentioned John Maxwell, who is the leadership guru. Probably also in my point, I've got about 10 of his books on my bookshelf. He says leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. Now, the question that I often ask myself now, that influence could be positive, it could also be negative. And where are we? And if we look at our current situation in South Africa, there's a lot of leaders, but not leading in a positive way, but leading in a negative way. So we need to understand that people like Glen said, his kids are watching him and they do what they see, not what he says. And that's the danger as a leader. People will be looking at me. And do I have a positive influence or a negative influence? And that's going to determine who is going to follow me. And that brings me back to my purpose. And my purpose is not to be negative and have a negative influence of people. My purpose is to encourage people to become what they'll be born to become. And that's the difficult part. A lot of people around us does not know what their purpose are. They just go through life, and that's when we need to start to lead. But I cannot do that if I cannot lead myself. Then the people cannot see what they need to do and and find their purpose and start to live their purpose.
Thank you very much. Rian?
Yeah, I think the two E's stand out, for me. And I go for each other is being an example and being an encourager. And what Glen reminded of us was very important in terms of encouraging. Encourage someone every day, even if you feel that if you don't feel like it, or you think you don't need to be encouraged. But I think it's very important because most of us that's involved with Map for Life has discovered that, hey, we've got a purpose, but we need somebody to encourage us to actually start looking for it. And we know the benefits of living purposefully. So I think Glen reminded and actually challenged me tonight to say, make sure you encourage at least one person a day. And on the other hand, also be open that other people can encourage you. I mean, I had a session in the week with one of my friends, and you know what? I could encourage him. He showed me a picture, and I saw something in there that I could use to encourage him. And when I realized that I actually heard correctly, because I felt like the Holy Spirit has put something in my heart, and I said, this is what I see in your picture, and I see that I could encourage him. And at the end of the day, I was encouraged because I could have been a vessel of God's encouragement to this gentleman. And so I think from my side, I also had a chat today to a few guys, and sometimes we also in a place of being depressed and feeling lonely or whatever, in a dark place, and then just chatting to other people and encouraging each other that we're on the right way and we need to go on. And there's another Afrikaans word is vastbyt, but it's to keep on keeping on. And that's what I want to say tonight, is really encourage people, because it comes back to you when you least expect it. So it's like seed. We like to talk about seed, but if you continually every day put one seed of encouragement in the ground, when you're going to need it and when you're going to be down and when you're going to be below the line, the encouragement will come back and the people will say, listen, but let us pick you up. And I always think about encouragement of Moses that was standing there and the Israelites were losing the war, and then he lifted his hands and then he let it go down. And at the end of the day, Aaron and Hur came and stand next to him and left his hand. That's for me the encouragement. When the battle starts going the wrong way, now the people around you will just lift your hands because you're the leader, because you believe in them and they believe in you. And at the end of the day, that will stand out. So I like the two E's. Be the example to always encourage other people.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I've read this story about a dad that grew up in America, but this dad was in a terrible car accident and he was limping. So his walk wasn't the walk that we know. And his wife died at the birth of their baby. And when this baby grew up, when he started walking, the funny thing is that this baby started walking exactly like his dad. There was nothing wrong with his leg. But the example that he saw and how his dad was walking is the picture that grew in his mind, and that's how he actually started walking. So I think there's a lot of power in example, and you mentioned the E there as well. Adding to that, Bucks was saying about the positive and the negative. I've also read that they say that if you see something, a shortcoming in another person, that is actually a mirror pointing back to you to say that you're seeing something in yourself that's missing. But the opposite of it is true as well. And that touches on your second E that you've got, Rian. So if I start seeing the positive in people, and if I start seeing positive in people, I'm also starting to see the positive in myself. If I start encouraging people and I build up the good in them, they will start seeing the good in themselves as well, but they will also start seeing the good in me. So I think that is very, very, very important that we need to do. I'm just quickly looking at what the gentlemen are saying. Stan is saying personal leadership is more important than organizational leadership. I think he's read my mind. For me, it seems like the buzzword out there, and I'm in the IT industry, seems to be leadership. Everybody is talking leadership. Everybody's writing blogs, doing things about leadership. Everybody wants to do something around leadership. Why do you guys think it is that important? And why would it be that important to say that leadership starts with myself? What is your take on leadership in a nutshell and where we are right now? Bucks?
And let's go back to scripture. And when Jesus spoke to the disciples and to the people, he said, people need to see the love in you. And he also said this, that's how the world is going to know that we are his children, by the way we love one another. Now the example and the encouragement, my example will encourage people. So I can talk about, I can encourage people, but if it's not authentic, if my encouragement is not authentic, and they cannot see it in my example I said, then that encouragement won't mean a lot. It will be short-lived, but people will go back. But the key is that somebody else said to me the other day is that the key is that I need to love the people around me before I like them, before I actually know them. And they must see that in me. And that is where personal leadership comes in, that people must see that my love for them, without me saying that, they must see it in the example that I said. But personal leadership is extremely important. And the way I live my life sets an example, but also encourage people to do good or to do bad. And it could be both. If we look at our government today, they got a lot of followers, but it's the leadership is not good.
Fantastic, Rian.
Henny, when we talk about trust, it is interesting. Stephen M.R. Covey, that's Stephen Covey from 7 Habits' son, wrote a book, The Speed of Trust. And in The Speed of Trust, he says, trust is like a stone or something you throw in the water and the waves that's going out. So he talks about the waves of trust. And the first wave of trust is self-trust. You cannot start trusting. So what he says is you need to start with the first wave, the second wave, third, etc. So the first, let me just go through. The first wave is self-trust. Then you've got relational trust. Then you've got organizational trust. Then you go to society trust, and then you go bigger than that. But what they're trying to say is you cannot go and build organizational trust if you don't even trust yourself. So you must start with yourself. You must start being trustworthy with yourself. Only once you've done that, you can start trusting the people around you and build trust relationships with them. So I think it's the same with leadership. We talk about self-leadership sometimes. Now, self-leadership is being a good leader to yourself, is getting yourself out of bed in the morning, is getting yourself to do the good things, the good habits. In Map for Life, we talk about habits. So you need to lead yourself in these things in life. Map for Life, by the way, is actually, we can call it self-mastery. It is to really master this life of mine and get into the right place. So I fully agree. You can go and try to build organizational leadership all you want to. If you don't let the people understand their purpose, if you don't let them understand what type of leader they are, then you will never get to a place, in any case, where you will have authentic, we use that word now, Bix use it, authentic organizational leadership. Because at the end of the day, the leaders need to have the strong foundation. And the foundation is personal leadership first. So I need to be the leader in my home. I need to be the leader with myself, in my friends, at my church, wherever. Then I can start doing it wider and wider. But we unfortunately have that thing, Henny, and you touched on that in the beginning, is that, we have a void, and we realize we sit with leaders that are not worth following because they have bad character, they've got bad habits, they've got bad whatever. Now we're trying to fix it artificially by saying, let's send them to a leadership course. We shouldn't send them to a leadership course. Let them go and find themselves. And I want to go one step further and say, let them find God. And if we can put God back where God needs to be in our world, not on the side, but in the middle, if we can start being unashamed, Romans 1 verse 16 says, that to believe in God is a strength. It's the power of God is to testify about Him. And so, if we can get to a place where we get people God-centered and knowing themselves and leading themselves well, only once they start leading themselves well, then we allow them to start leading our organizations and our churches and our movements and whatever, because then the center and the foundation is right. But now we try to fix the fruits, but the roots are still rotten, and that's a big problem.
I want to add to on that, and what Rian mentioned, something is trust. Trust is important, and one thing is we cannot get the trust from people if we don't spend time with them, if we don't really get to know them and they get to know us. So how do you build trust is to spend time with people and build a solid relationship. But the key is I also need to trust myself. So if I want to trust myself, I also need to spend time with myself. And really to spend time with myself is sit back and say, where am I now? What am I doing? What am I doing right? And I mean, that's one of the things we teach them in Map for Life is to sit down and to say, what must I stop doing? What must I do more? What must I start doing? And ask those questions. And then like Glen then said, then I need to trust myself when I lead. Trust myself, and then forget about the mistakes that I make, because that's still going to happen. But I need to trust myself, because if I don't trust myself as a leader, the people around me will also won't trust me, and that's the reality, because they can see it. They will see it in my actions, in my example.
Exactly. I think what you're saying is true. A leader is a mirror. And people will see something in that mirror, and that's what they will actually then mirror as well.
Correct.
Good evening, Jacqueline and Marvin. I see there's more people joining us as well. All right, quickly share with you what they said. Jacqueline said, Rian, I agree absolutely that encouragement can be regarded as a seed. I also think of it as fertilizer for seeds already sown. And she's calling it phosphate fertilizer. So you're starting a movement here. Marvin's got 2 words as well. Marvin is saying life around you starts and stops with, guess what? You. You need to lead yourself, then the world will follow. Don't wait for the world to do anything. The world is chasing the world's agenda. So you need to come to the party. I think Glen put it perfectly when he said, and I forgot what I wanted to say. You were born for a purpose that this world cannot do without. And the key thing in the sentence is you. You are the one that needs to start running with it. All righty, some more. Quentin says, leadership gives impetus to movement. A cause is mobilized through leadership. And the more I read here, the more I see the importance of leadership. The more I see that should be one of the key things that we should be focusing on. Terence loves your phosphate fertilizer as well. Okay, so your phosphate fertilizer movement is starting, Mr. Leader. Stan is saying encourage others. Terence is saying that I agree with 100%. We are born with the ability to lead. I think we are all born leaders. I don't think leaders are necessarily made. I think we are all born leaders. We just need to accept that and take from it what we can to become even better. Talk about the perfect example. Terence is saying, just look at Jesus, the greatest leader who ever walked this earth. And then Terence is also saying, fix the roots. Well said, Rian. So everybody is throwing into the spot this big thing about leadership and the importance of that. Can I throw in a very difficult question out? And I'm going to throw it out to the panel, but I'm going to throw it out to all the online visitors as well. Where do I start becoming a leader? What is the things that I need to look for? What are the things that you think, if somebody comes to you and say, I need to become a leader, I want to be a leader, what is it that I need to do? I'm going to throw out this difficult question. Where do we start with that? What is it that I need to do to become a leader? Bux, you ready for this one?
Well, Glenn said that he said that in his talk that I need to know where I'm going. I need to know why I'm going there, so that people can see that I'm moving forward and I'm moving with a purpose. And if they buy into that vision or that direction that I'm going, then they will start to follow me. Other than that, they won't follow me, because if I don't know where I'm going, they won't follow me. So if I need to know exactly what am I here for, and understand my purpose, and then pursue my purpose with passion and perseverance, and going forward with that, and know where I'm going, and I must have a plan to that, and then people will start to follow me.
So is it fair to say, based on what you're saying then, if I don't know where I'm going, I'm not a leader, I'm actually a follower. I'm waiting for somebody to do something so that I can follow.
Well, if I don't know where I'm going, then I won't know if I arrive anywhere. So I might just sit down and do nothing. Yeah, people won't follow me if I just sit and do nothing.
Perfect. Rian?
Yeah, I think, the question you said is, if someone comes to me and tell me I want to be a leader, where must I start? I will start with, what's your PMS? What's a PMS for you to want to be a leader? Is it pressure? Is it money? Is it the status that sounds good? Because if that's your reason to be a leader, then you're not going to be a good leader. You might lead someone, but you're not going to lead them to significance. But on the other hand, if you want to lead people because people are your passion, you feel you've got a meaningful purpose to add value to their lives, and you want to lead people to significance, then I'm saying you're on the right track. Then when you start there, then I say start with yourself. You're a leader of yourself. If there's no one else, then at least lead yourself well. And once you start proving yourself, then people will get attracted. Old Jaap Nel, that's also involved with us at Map for Life, he likes to say, show your flower. The bees won't know what to do if they don't see where the flowers are. So for you, if you feel that you are a leader, I don't know what you want to lead. Do you want to lead at the school or at the workplace or wherever? But start showing. Lead yourself well. And as you start leading yourself well, you've got something. You've got a flower to show the world. And then the bees will come and then the whole process will happen. That the next flowers will come up and the next harvest will come. So it's always important to start with yourself. You need to be comfortable with yourself. We are 3 brothers that's left in my family, and my one brother said to me one time, although you're the youngest, you're the most comfortable in your skin. And I think, they are. I sometimes see the 2 of them, my older brothers, much more driven than I am, and they're on their way somewhere, and I feel like I can't keep up with them. And it was really for me actually a different view, that he said, with everything, you are comfortable in your skin. And I think that's important for a leader, to be comfortable in your own skin. Yes, you're going to make mistakes and you're going to fall off the bus. This weekend, I was talking at the church about, before the cross, and Jesus' purpose on earth wasn't doing a lot of miracles and stuff like that. His purpose on earth was to go to the cross, number 1, but that was only the start, then to die, and then to get raised again. And that was what he was sent for. We get stuck at the cross. But what I told the people is, if you look at a guy like Peter, before the cross, he made mistakes, and it was almost, it was train smash. After the cross, he started growing into a mature Christian adult follower of God, the man of God that the world wants to see. He still made mistakes, but the focus was suddenly off the mistakes, and it was about everything he accomplished and the way that he's grown. And I think if you start getting comfortable with yourself, you also start getting comfortable with it that you're a human and you make mistakes. But the mistakes aren't important anymore. It's every time getting up and growing that gets more and more important. But to answer your question, start with your PMS.
Yeah, I just want to add on that. I'm just thinking about when God spoke to Habakkuk. He said to Habakkuk, look in the future and see what's in the future, and go down and write it on the rock. write that vision on the rock so that anybody that sees it will run with it. In other words,
Yes.
he had to see the future, write it down for the people to run with it and to run towards the future. So and that's my PMS. My personal mission statement is: where am I going? Am I going forward? Write it down so that people can see it and run with it. And that's a critical thing. So where does it start? It starts with me and God giving me the vision. I write it down, people see it, and they run with it. And that makes me a leader.
Thank you very much. So to add to it, Stan is saying leaders lead and followers follow, which is true. I want to add to that to say I think there's not enough leaders in the world today. We've got a whole bunch of followers, and I think the great planning, as Glen used to call it before, that we had for about 2.5 years, actually showed us that there was a lot of followers and not a lot of leaders. And then Terence is adding, saying, you are correct, Bucks. Leaders need to have a clear vision. So yes, I do agree. I think the one key for you to be a leader is to have a vision. You need to know where you're going. Glen is quoted as well to say, Helen Keller said, the most pathetic person on this planet is a person who has sight but lacks vision. So true. It's so true. And I think adding to the leadership for me, Map for Life is a lifestyle methodology. But the first step is really getting comfortable within your skin by saying, let's establish your position, know where you are, know what you are capable of, making peace with it, knowing that you are in fact a leader. But I think once you know that you are the leader, then you actually determine your destination. Then you know where you need to go to. And as soon as you know where you're going, you are a leader. And I think you need to then believe in yourself that you will get to that destination, and people will follow you. People will look at you. And all the wonderful traits that Glen spoke about as a leader will actually become evident in the way that you're going. If you do know where you're going, and if you do have a vision, all the leadership qualities that is needed will actually come out. All righty. From your side, Bux, Rian, I'm just quickly seeing, is there anything else coming through from the people before I'm going to ask you to start winding down? Terence are saying, well done, excellent discussion, great gems. The interesting thing is, I've got a sneak peek of the whole year's 52 gems, and I know our theme for this year is really around leadership. I had a sneak peek of all of them, and what is very interesting is the things that came up through the discussion that Glen had with us as well. All of those are actually gems. So there are another 40 or so that's coming your way that you can see. So there's a lot of gems still coming that actually adds value to you believing in yourself as a leader, because you are born a leader. With that, on that note, then, Bucks, what are your closing thoughts around leadership?
I think we can still talk about leadership for ages. I mean, because John Maxwell started with his leadership principles 20, 25, 30 years back, and they haven't changed. So what I'm saying is leadership is a reality. And I think what we need to start to understand, we need to have our vision. But what the most important part is, I think, is like what Rian said, is the example. And we must start to become servant leaders, and not just say, here's my vision, you got to follow me. But we also need to serve the people that follows us.
So true, so true. I think at the talk, the MapCon talk that we had, and I'm trying to think who it was, I think it was Mel actually did have a talk about servant leadership, and he spoke to us for about 8 or 9 minutes just around that topic as well. Rian?
Yeah. There's a term that's called transformational leadership, and I think, the idea behind it is that to put a different angle on it, is you actually need to be transformed, and then you need to transform the place you're in. And I think that's what we need. We when I was talking about courageous leadership, we need to challenge what is for what could be and what should be. And the important thing for me there is that we really mustn't get, we've got a lot to say, and I'm guilty person number one, about the leaders that we have. It doesn't matter where you are in the world, we have something to say about the leaders around us. I think we need transformational leadership, starting with yourself. You need to transform the way that you perceive the world and what is done. And then you need to have the courage to walk out and say, well, how can I make a difference? How can I be transformed myself? And how can I be transforming the people around me? I remember when Glen came back from Uganda, he said, when you start speaking to people that say, the problem in Uganda is, and then he said the challenge to them is they must start saying the solution for Uganda is. And I think really that's what we also need to start doing. And that was also my message over the weekend to the people was, you know what, now, let's use that power when Jesus was raised from the dead and start that power to actually transform us and to also raise from the dead, by way of speech, and start getting up and really transforming the world, really start looking with different eyes and start making an impact. And a transformational leader believes in the people that is leading, he's part of them, he's challenging them, but very importantly, he's leading them by his example. He doesn't expect them to do things that he won't do themselves. So let's go and be transformational leaders by transforming ourselves and let the people see the fruit of our work. And let's not be afraid of the 1 or 2 times we're going to slip up. Like Glen said, if it's more than 50% right, then we're actually on a good way. As long as we don't make more mistakes than we hit it right. But if you have the guts to go out every time, I always say to the guys at the rugby match, the best players are sitting in the pavilions. The ones that are on the field are bound to make a few mistakes. Let's stop focusing on the mistakes and let's start, just running and doing the things. And let's have this. Let's start challenging ourselves every day. What is out there, but how can it improve? What has God put on my heart? Let's start dreaming again, and let's start really challenging ourselves to create a better world right where we are, where we can make a difference.
Thank you very much. What you guys were saying just now made me think to say that if you've got a clear vision and you do everything you need to get to that vision, you're actually a leader in the making that goes there. And I think the one thing that we must sometimes just stop and realize and appreciate is the fact that you are becoming one awesome person in that process of getting to your purpose, because you're learning and doing a few things along the lines. You are turning into a leader, and we sometimes are so focused on where we want to get to that we forget to smell the roses on the way there. So be appreciative. Think about it sometimes, just to say, what wonderful person have I turned into? What great leader have I turned to? But what more can I learn, and how can I inspire more people? How can I encourage more people? So never forget that. I think we've run out of time. Thank you so much, Bix. Thank you so much, Rian, for your valuable insight. A special thank you to everybody on the online community that had some very valuable input. Thank you very much. Let me call the names, and hopefully I'm not going to miss. Thank you, Quentin, Stan, that I could see, Terrence, Marvin was there, who am I missed? Jacqueline was there as well. Thinking I'm not missing anybody else. Quentin, I did mention, yes. So thank you very much. I think it's a growing process. I think people are adding more and more to it, and I'm looking forward to learning a lot more. So on that note, thank you very much for everyone. Have an awesome evening. See you next week, Wednesday, same time, same place. Good night.
Today, for me, today for you, today for each of us, is an opportunity and an invitation to step into a world of abundance where your life matters, where your vision makes a difference, where the world will know that once upon a time in the past there was a man or a woman who rose to the calling of God in their life and made the impact that they were designed to make. And you have that ability. Just die to self, surrender to Him, and become significant. I couldn't be more excited for you. I could not be more excited about the future, because every person that you equip to take that step of putting a plan together for their life, a plan that is aligned with the desires of their heart, those people, those children, young and old, are going to come alive, and they're going to cause a ripple that goes through time that impacts the lives of others. Make the choice today to live a life of significance.